We have breaking news coming out of Syria as a Russian warplane was shot down in the Idlib province of northwest Syria. The Russian Defense Ministry confirmed the Su-25 was shot down and said the pilot safely ejected but was killed fighting, quote, terrorists. According to reports, the area is mainly controlled by U.S.-backed forces. An al-Qaeda-linked group has claimed responsibility for shooting down the Russian aircraft using the shoulder-fired surface-to-air missile system called MANPADS. Russia quickly responded with airstrikes in the area, reportedly killing 30 militants. An al-Qaeda-affiliated news agency quoted a militant commander from the group claiming responsibility for downing the Russian jet as saying, quote, "The anti-aircraft weapons were sent to al-Qaeda's fighters in the Sarakeb area after airstrikes intensified this week." He warned that Russian airplanes will not pass through Syrian airspace without, quote, "paying a price." So this terrorist commander is quoted in the news saying they just received these anti-aircraft missiles this week. I'd like to point out that in 2015, Senator John McCain appeared on Fox News saying the U.S. should start providing anti-aircraft weapons to anti-Assad forces to start shooting down Russian planes.
Senator, if you were president in the middle of all of this, and you know, or you're charging as you did just now, and I assume you know more than I do, that the Russian fighters are targeting the very groups we are trying to help, would you shoot down those Russian planes?
No, but I would certainly make it clear. Well, I would do a whole lot of things. General David Petraeus testified before the Armed Services Committee 2 weeks ago. He laid out what we need to do. We need to stop the barrel bombing. We need to have a no-fly zone. We need to have a buffer zone for refugees. We need to provide certain
I know that, Senator,
help.
but if they're attacking the very guys who we want to see topple Assad, you would let American planes just continue to pass them and let them do that?
No, but I might do what we did in Afghanistan many years ago to give those guys the ability to shoot down those planes. That equipment is available.
A U.S. State Department spokeswoman has denied allegations that the U.S. provided the MANPAD missile systems to any group in Syria. This, of course, follows the recent drone attacks on 2 Russian military bases in Syria attributed to Western-backed forces, which Newsbud has covered extensively. It appears the drone attacks, which were initially blamed on Turkey and later debunked, and this downing of the Russian warplane are not only a major escalation, but are meant to diminish relations between Russia and Turkey, as both of these attacks were launched from the de-escalation zone Turkey is overseeing in accordance with the Astana peace talks. This is one of the many stories we are keeping an eye on here at Newsbud. This week at Newsbud, our Russia expert breaks down Turkey's military intervention in Syria from Russia's perspective. Our China expert has an amazing episode documenting what was missed or left out of the Netflix series Wormwood. Kurt Nimmo documents the drone wars, and our constitutional expert John W. Whitehead covers the potential dangers of an encounter with the police. But first, Newsbud is only funded through your donations and subscriptions, and we really do count on your support to make what we do here possible. A monthly subscription costs practically nothing and will provide you with full access to all of our amazing content from our distinguished team of experts. Let's take a quick look at what Newsbud subscribers got just in the last week of their monthly subscription. This week, Newsbud published an exclusive article by our newest member of the team, Lieutenant Colonel retired Tim Ferner. You may recall Newsbud's founder and editor Sibel Edmonds recently interviewed Mr. Ferner, exposing how the government and private contractors have defrauded the American taxpayers for millions of dollars. They also discussed their journeys as whistleblowers.
I spent 27 years on active duty. I flew 5,000 hours, including I flew test and evaluation aircraft at the Lockheed Skunk Works. The Air Force gave me a TS SCI, and when I was with NATO, I had a Cosmic TS Atomal. I was PNAP, which means I was capable of working with nuclear weapons, and I was on the PRP program. They spent a lot of money, probably over $1.5 million to give me all this training and to get me a security clearance. Yet, when I went to them and said that there was a problem and people were stealing money from the taxpayers, they didn't do anything. In fact, what they did was they made it seem like I was a disgruntled employee and I had no business reporting the fraud. So that concerns me. And as I went through the system and saw the way the system works, and I had done investigations with the Air Force Inspector General's office, I've come to see that the system doesn't work. It's driven more by a process. The process is more important than the information being reported. And for the people in the department.
It's a powerful interview, well worth watching. But back to the first Newsbud article by Tim Ferner titled, "Why Does America Elect So Many Losers to Congress?" In this must-read article, Ferner documents, despite the fact that Congress has an overwhelming disapproval rating by the American public with less than 10%, over 90% of the people who get elected to Congress run for re-election and win over and over, turning what was meant to be a short-term service of the country, representing the interests of the people, into lifelong positions where the representatives have become career politicians who make millions of dollars while selling the country and the American people out to the highest bidder. And at the same time, Congress is not able to fulfill their most basic and fundamental responsibilities, including appropriating funds to keep the government operating. And on top of it, Congress polices themselves as they have a secret fund to pay off victims of sexual abuse, preventing accountability in the crimes of these representatives from ever seeing the light of day. Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg in this hard-hitting article that every American needs to read, and it's open to all right now at newsbud.com. This week on Newsbud's Geopolitical Report with Kurt Nimmo, Nimmo documents the recent attack on 2 Russian military bases in Syria, with all the latest updates, including evidence that points responsibility for the attack to the CIA, and how this attack was a false flag aimed to sabotage Russian relationships with key allies. Plus, Nimmo gives the best overview I have seen to date on drone warfare, including the CIA's deadly and covert campaigns that are considered to be illegal and war crimes.
The CIA has used drones for years in its covert targeted assassination program. It was commissioned following the September 11th attacks. The CIA often collaborates with the U.S. military on these operations. The operations, carried out primarily in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia, and elsewhere, are illegal under international law.
The full video is exclusively available for members at newsbud.com. Non-members can watch right now at Newsbud Vimeo on demand. Now, it's widely believed throughout the diplomatic global community that the use of UN mediators is often a very effective, sometimes necessary tool in order to resolve a dispute between two parties, usually between two countries. The UN describes mediation as a voluntary process conducted confidentially in which a trained, neutral person known as a mediator assists parties in working towards a negotiated agreement of a dispute or difference. But are these mediators really neutral? Well, this week, one of our new writers at Newsbud, Chris Melidis, who is based in Greece, wrote an exclusive article for Newsbud pulling back the curtain, exposing how UN mediators are overt operatives working to ensure U.S. and NATO global hegemony, as he connects the dots, exposing the invisible spiderweb that is subverting international law. This eye-opening article is available right now for members at newsbud.com. On Newsbud's Russian Newspaper Monitor, Professor Kovacevic deconstructs the headlines in the Russian newspapers while providing expert analysis. In this week's episode, Professor Kovacevic breaks down the rising tensions between the U.S., NATO, and Russia, specifically in the Ukraine, with a military buildup and new legislation that could draw Russia into a direct conflict with the U.S. and NATO.
Because Russia would now be defined as a direct combatant. In other words, military and civilian resources in Russia itself would become a legitimate war target for the Ukrainians, assisted, of course, by the Western covert military and intelligence personnel. The same thing was done in the Balkans in the 1990s by fueling the wars among the former Yugoslav republics. In the end, this all led to the NATO military attack on the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. Is this the same long-term scenario being planned for Russia? It is true that Russia, in contrast to Serbia, has nuclear weapons, but what if the NATO deep state operatives think that they could take out the Russian nuclear deterrent preemptively? This, of course, would be a grave mistake, but the arrogant and megalomaniac groupthink is known to have existed for decades in the top echelons of the US intelligence community. Nonetheless, let's hope that the cooler heads will prevail. However, the danger should not be discounted, and we need to remain vigilant.
Kovacevic also covers the latest on Turkey's deadly campaign in Syria and how Russia is reacting, plus Russia's participation at Davos, what the takeaways were, who came out on top, and Russia's stance on Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. This is must-see news and analysis, and you won't find it anywhere but newsbud.com. So become a member today. And if you want to preview our work, check us out at Newsbud Vimeo On Demand. This week on Newsbud's China Watch, Peter Lee exposes what was left out either by mistake or intentionally in the Netflix documentary series Wormwood. This is one of the best episodes of China Watch I have seen, as Peter Lee delves deep into the use of biological weapons by the United States during the Korean War, as he covers the accusations, the facts, and the cover-up, pointing to indications of terrible crimes committed that very well may have played a key role in the murder of U.S. military and CIA biological weapons researcher Frank Olson, who allegedly jumped out of a window and fell 13 stories to his death after being dosed with LSD. If you want to get the whole story, go to newsbud.com and join today to receive full access to this video and others, including an exclusive interview with Newsbud founder Sibel Edmonds and her guest, author, investigator, and CIA expert Douglas Valentine, as they also cover the Wormwood series in depth and actually reveal the names of the two assassins responsible for Olson's death. Find out all this and more exclusively at newsbud.com. Non-members can watch this and all of Newsbud's exclusive videos at Newsbud Vimeo On Demand. President Trump held his first State of the Union this week, and one of Trump's promises was to keep Guantanamo Bay open and fill it up with terrorists. Well, this week, Newsbud published an exclusive article by Kurt Nimmo documenting the human rights abuses that have occurred at Gitmo and how Americans may end up there as well if they are accused of being a terrorist by the government without showing any proof, where they will be stripped of all their rights, including the right to a fair and speedy trial. This is a must-read article exposing the kidnapping and torture operations conducted by the CIA under multiple administrations, a practice that will be continued by the Trump administration. The full article is available now exclusively for members at newsbud.com. This week, Newsbud's constitutional attorney John W. Whitehead covers a deadly and controversial topic as he documents the very real dangers one is faced during an encounter with the police during a traffic stop.
We've all been there before. You're driving along and you see a pair of flashing blue lights in your rearview mirror. Whether or not you've done anything wrong at all, you get a sinking feeling in your stomach. You've read enough news stories, you've seen enough headlines, and you've lived in the American police state long enough to be anxious or suspicious about any encounter with a cop that takes place on the side of the road. For better or for worse, from the moment you're pulled over, you're at the mercy of law enforcement officers who have almost absolute discretion to decide who is the threat, what constitutes resistance, and how harshly they can deal with the citizens they were appointed to serve and protect.
Now, we here at Newsbud are not anti-police by any means, although we are anti-police state and do not agree with the militaristic training that attributes law-abiding citizens with enemy combatants, which has led to many abuses and violations of people's rights, and even wrongful deaths at the hands of the police. Whitehead also provides some potentially life-saving tips if you have an encounter with the police. The full video is available for members right now at newsbud.com. Non-members can watch and share at Newsbud Vimeo On Demand. Newsbud also offers our own aggregated news, and we call it Sibel's Picks. It's the best source for aggregated news online. Our community members love it. Newsbud's founder and editor Sibel Edmonds handpicks each story herself. You get about 90 links a week, plus all the interviews, the video reports, and articles, and much more exclusively for members at newsbud.com. There is no contract or obligation, and it costs practically nothing. Plus, your subscription helps to fund this operation. Newsbud is dedicated to providing the best news and analysis with the highest standards for integrity and accuracy in our reporting. Go to newsbud.com today and give us a try. On behalf of Newsbud, thank you for your support, and stay tuned for next week's lineup.